we were talking about making introductions to other people we knew to see if they were interested in buying it. And I turned to him and I said, well, why don't we buy it? Why don't you buy it? Immediately, which I think is the reaction of people that have never owned a business. You're like, well, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. I said, well, let's look at the financials. Looked at the financials and I was like, oh yeah, we're buying this business.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the Chasing Goalpost podcast, where we elevate authentic human stories while sharing personal finance, growth, and career insights along the way. Now, before we get started, as always, you can review our disclaimers via our website at www.chasinggoalposts.com/disclaimers. Now, today I'm excited to introduce our guest, a highly accomplished professional from Duluth, Minnesota. She has built an impressive career and her own personal holding company. More to come on that during the session, which includes owning a strategic marketing firm, serving as a fractional VP for other businesses, and investing in and advising in 2 other local companies. Her extensive experience and diverse expertise make her a true powerhouse in the business world. Let's dive into her journey and insights. Lisa Bodine, welcome to the Chasing Goalposts podcast.
Thanks, Dustin. I feel like I need a walk-on song. Jump in. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're going to work on that walk-on song, I think, actually. When we go live with the episode on Instagram, we're going to get you to give us a song that you want to walk out to, just like one of those baseball players that walks up to the mound and they've got their song. So we'll get that in place. We'll follow up with you on that after the show here.
Okay.
So Lisa, we always say everyone's story is unique, and we'd love to hear yours. Could you give us an overview of what your life and career have looked like to date?
Yes, for sure. Well, I think, I always like to start with how I grew up. I mean, I think we all do. You can find connection in that. And I grew up in a small farm town in Minnesota. It was a farm town, Elk River. And today it's more of a suburb in the western metro of the Twin Cities. And I had a really nostalgic childhood. Grew up in a rural area, it's outside a lot. Of course, no cell phones or anything, today's technology. But my mom and dad, I grew up in a very much middle class environment. My dad was a bricklayer and a union bricklayer, and my mom was a 911 dispatcher. So early on, really got the exposure to hard work ethic, long days, commitment, doing what you say you will do. My dad was just a 100% always on the go type of a person. So even though he worked outside all day long in the hot summer days or in the cold winter days, he'd come home and we would be mowing the lawn and chopping wood and doing something outside. I think I had just what I would consider kind of the best childhood. I grew up when, for me, I was always active in sports, so competition was important to me. But early on, work was really what I knew I wanted to be a professional. I knew I wanted to go into business. I knew that I wanted to have a career that was more profound than what I was ever exposed to in Elk River. And so, I knew that I probably wouldn't live there when I grew up, but I didn't really exactly know what that looked like. I think, none of us really do, but I had access to a lot of mentorship opportunities along the way. Graduated from high school, went to Minneapolis. So I went to the University of Minnesota and initially went in for engineering, for technology, engineering, biology, and quickly changed lanes into the business school. And that was where I just really found, I think, my footing. And again, had never really been exposed to business, but once I got into the business school and started working in business internships, it really was where I belonged. So it I stayed in Minneapolis for the early part of my career. I worked in large corporate environments. I interned for a company, a large insurance company, New England Financial, that had smaller regional offices in Minnesota, and then went through what I call my corporate, downsizing days. I started at the top with, large corporation, Target Corporation, went through their merchandising program and worked as a business analyst there. And then slowly started working for smaller and smaller companies until, I found myself in Duluth, and here I am today, after a career that has taken me through sales, primarily through marketing roles, through policy and lobbying roles, and really set me up for where I am today and who I am today.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I mean, Elk River, as we know, is not a small town anymore. Like you mentioned it, it is a suburb now of the Twin Cities. So it's kind of funny for people to think that way. But I always say we're in Prior Lake, as you know, but everything just keeps moving out, northwest, east.
It's
etc.
crazy.
So
We
yeah.
had no Target, we had no 169 going through the way you see it today. And oh my gosh, I worked at the truck stop on 94 and 101 I was a waitress there for a long time. And I think about those days and felt so small town. And now it's it's totally bustling.
It's interesting because you talked about those larger corporations, and then obviously you transitioned to smaller organizations over time. So the path was being laid there. It sounded like for as you get into the small organizations, you see a bit more of that entrepreneurial mindset going on as well. So that's kind of brings us to our next question here. And so let's focus a bit on your current endeavors. So over the years, you've built a bit of a holding company yourself, which includes active business roles and passive investments. And maybe let's begin with majority ownership of the firm Giant Voices, which is based in Duluth. How did you become the president and owner of that business?
Oh my gosh, it has been such a journey. Giant Voices is today we are owned, but there are 3 women. We own and operate the business, and just recently shifted some shares around. And I have to tell you that over the course of my career, I mean, you mentioned it there, having exposure to entrepreneurs just really ignites your fire to become, for me, and if I think back to where I knew I either wanted to be a business owner or run a business for somebody else, it was right around 2008. I mean, I can remember it vividly. And at that point in time, I was working for an entrepreneur in a private economic development organization, and I just knew, he calls me Bodie still to this day. He's like, Bodie, I know this is your career. Like, you will run a business someday. You will be an entrepreneur. And I think if I can look back and connect what has helped me be successful over the years, it's definitely people like that have identified opportunities for me that they see based on my personality or my work product. And I had that opportunity with Giant Voices too. So when I moved to Duluth in the 2000s, it was shortly thereafter that I met one of my business partners, Pasha Apter. And Pasha was, and it still is, just this dynamic, this fireball of energy. And she was at the time working as a minority partner in an advertising firm. Ultimately, she ended up buying her business partner out, and she and I had worked together in the business community on a variety of different projects. We helped start what is today so many of our young professional organizations. And I think back, we were late 20s, sitting on the board of our Chamber of Commerce and really being quite dynamic as young female leaders in in the Duluth Superior community. She, at one point in time, after many years of working alongside one another, looked at me and really invited me to become her business partner. And I took the leap. I bought in. She made that possible for me, which I think, I owe that to her forever, in terms of not saying something like, you can be an entrepreneur, or you will be, but really inviting me to be part of that. And, to this day, she will always say she didn't want to sit in it alone, right? As an entrepreneur, if you are a sole business owner, there are days when, that becomes really heavy, and it's really, you can't understand what it's like to worry about your team or payroll, or, some of the different challenges and joy that comes with owning a business until you really do it, right? And so I wouldn't have that opportunity if it wasn't for her. And I took that to heart very early on. And I have just wanted to do that now for other people, since I'm in the position to do that. And that's really been, I think, the inspiration for me to take this Holdco approach, or this investment approach, to help other people find the freedom and the joy and the struggle and all the things that come with being a business owner, an entrepreneur.
Wow, that's cool. So essentially that opportunity, that passion you had, or provided yourself, you're providing that to others now in a different way. So kind of paying it forward, giving it back in that sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I did not realize that. So that is a very cool dynamic. So let's dive into that a little bit. I think that's kind of interesting because, in addition to your active role, right, which we just talked about with Giant Voices, you have done just that. So you've invested alongside friends and family in two other businesses, essentially creating, your own Holdco. Maybe would you be willing to share, how those opportunities evolved and what industries they're in?
Yeah, I would love to. I think first, as a marketer, and if I just look back at my career, I've had the opportunity to see so much, right? As a strategic advisor or partner with the clients that we've worked with over the course of the last 2 decades, I've had the great opportunity to learn from business leaders in manufacturing, in the service industry, in technology, in mining, in permitting, so many different landscapes, which provide me, I think, a background and a basis foundation to say, I know a little bit about a lot, and I know a lot about a lot because of the engagements that we have with our clients. And also early on in my career, I was involved in boards. So even though I wasn't running a P&L myself, I have been looking at a P&L since 2006 and understanding what that means across a variety of different types of businesses. And, it's really math problems when I think about running a business. Obviously, there's the human dynamic, which you cannot ignore, but it really does come down to understanding how the math works. And so having that perspective, I think, was a gift that I didn't even realize I had access to or had. And so I have my best friend from Elk River. There's a handful of us who are still BFs forever. One of them, my closest friend here in Duluth, she and her husband have, these great jobs in the service industry, healthcare, firefighting. I mean, they're working, they're truly truly heroes every day in what they do. And, you know, they have this high achieving family, a goaltender actually, who's, you know, playing hockey all over the country and just one of the rising stars. And, you know, looking at their careers, saying, how are we going to continue to position this, our, you know, child for success and pay for him to be part of all these, give him the opportunities that somebody of his caliber could, if given the right opportunities, could, you know, thrive and shine in perhaps the NHL, right? It's hard when you're working overtime and you know, putting in, that's your only way to flex your income when you're in some of those roles, right? You have to pick up more time. And so one, you know, Dan, who is Jamie's husband, was working overtime, picking up time in an ancillary business that was really secondary to firefighting, and the firefighting crews all worked for this company during their days off, and so it was a supplemental income for him. It's still a little early here, Dustin. I don't have all my coffee. It's a little longer intro than I intended, but
No, that's good. This is good. We want to hear it.
the company he was freelancing for essentially was for sale, and it is a safety and rescue company that essentially provides outsourced fire crew members when a large company, ethanol facility, refinery goes into shutdown mode, for example, for regular maintenance. This crew will go provide, essentially they'll go provide safety services and rescue services if needed, as their company crew members do what they need to do, or confined space and rescue. So lots of training, lots of fire extinguisher training for corporate settings and industrial settings. So very unique niche services, and the business was for sale. And Dan was, you know, concerned, rightfully so, about who's going to purchase the business and will he still have access to those freelance hours that were really important to his family. And ultimately, you know, we were talking about making introductions to other people we knew to see if they were interested in buying it. And I turned to him and I said, well, why don't we buy it? Why don't you buy it? And, you know, he immediately, which I think is the reaction of people that have never owned a business, you're like, well, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. And so I said, well, let's look at the financials for one, right? And looked at the financials and I was like, oh yeah, we're buying this business. We're doing this. So as we were, you know, chatting through options, he had thought, well, let's make sure we know who has control of the business, and perhaps we look at other friends and that are also business owners. And I said, well, Dan, why don't we buy it? Why don't you buy it? Why don't we look at how, you know, we can really take control of your future by buying the business? And he was like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. You know, here's all the reasons why we shouldn't. And I will say, you know, Jamie, Dan's wife, and again, my good friend, she had the foresight to say, let's just go through all of those objections, Dan, and, you know, let's talk about each of them. And as we started to go through it, and as you start to, you know, look at the financials and understand when you buy a business, what sort of, you know, tax considerations come along with it, especially when you're buying, you know, the type of business that you buy, whether you buy, you know, if you take the business over from an asset purchase or a stock purchase. And so we really started to get into those specifics, and we looked at the financials, and for me, it was a no-brainer. For me, it was, we have to do this. Like, this is there's so much financial freedom in it in the long run when when you look at the first 3 years are going to be challenging when, we're still really in our current roles 100% or 150%, but in time and right out of the gates, it's proven to just be a game changer, right? We also didn't buy it really with we bought it to ensure that we could have some control over Dan and Jamie's income flexibility. But what we really wanted was the ability to do things together as a family and have our kids grow up in a business and have our kids be part of, learning that work ethic through their own business, right? Washing the trailers and putting away the inventory and doing the work, mailing the checks, printing, the checks. And so that's been a really great experience for our entire family, which we refer to as our family of 8. And so that's been, it hasn't been without its challenges for sure. You jump into marriage, even though you've been best friends and have known each other for your basically entire lives. You're married now. And so that's been great. It's been about a year and a half in that particular with First Strike. And, Dan's doing a fantastic job. For me, it's always about, this is the business that he knows, not the business that I know. I understand how the financials work. I understand how the tax implications work, how they, how we can position the business to be beneficial for the family. And so, here we are, it's already a year and a half and it's been a blessing for sure.
So what about the other business? Like there's 2 businesses you
Yep.
had mentioned, and I don't think it's probably the same. It's pretty niche. That first industry is pretty niche, so I assume that's kind of a little different.
Yeah, this is totally left field. So my family has traditionally, I have a younger brother, who's lived in the Twin Cities for his entire life. And my mom and dad moved to the Duluth area about a decade ago. And, as aging parents come into play, my father passed away about 3 years ago, which was really hard. He had some serious health issues, and we're right in the middle of COVID, running a business, wondering how if your business is gonna continue to grow. Traditionally, when business hits a recession or some kind of economic downturn, marketing is the first expense that will go. And so we prepared for that with COVID, but ultimately we didn't see that happen, which was again a blessing. So we prepared for the downturn. We didn't have it. So instead of dealing with a shrinking business at Giant Voices, we were booming, right? So aging parents, father passed away, COVID, crazy Giant Voices growth for us, and remote team. And then all of a sudden I'm, taking care of my mom, and my mom's health requires many, many doctor's visits. For a long period of time, it felt like a week, right? So many visits a week, in addition to taking care of my busy kids and busy business. So anyway, long story short, my brother had been trying to move to Duluth, Superior, for quite some time, and just none of the opportunities were working out. And so we had just purchased First Strike, and we went through like the SBA process and whatnot. So I wouldn't say it was easy, but have a great professional team around me. Banker, Jaron at North Shore Bank. Oh my gosh, best banker, best bank. Have to give them a shout out. My attorney,
Love it.
Ham Frady, Bill Burns, best, right? And then business advisor, you have to have one. Rob West, amazing. Accountant, you have to have the whole team around you when you are buying a business. And, they have to tell you if you're crazy or not. And I think that's what I look to this team for all the time. I'll say, like, Bill, am I nuts on this? And he'll, keep me in check. This is what you should be worried about, Lisa. And I definitely take his advice. But anyway, went to my advisors and, we really started talking about buying another business for my brother. One was available. It was Marine's Kitchen and Bath Design, which is a studio, essentially a design studio, and then wrap around a construction project with primarily residents or light commercial clients to help design their homes, primarily their kitchens and baths and family areas. My brother came out of the architecture space, so he was very familiar with what I would call the operations side of the business, not the front end design. And so quickly though, we met the business owners and talked through what they were looking for in a buyer, and ultimately I ended up buying the business. My brother is a minority partner in that, but he runs the business and he's been doing a great job. Fantastic. So it's now been about 8 months, so we're still really new, but it is going very well. So he and his family moved to Duluth. They actually live right by us, and it's lovely to have my nieces here and his family. His wife helps tremendously with healthcare for my mom, and for me, it was a necessary investment for my brother to have a role, a job, a career where he could take care of his family. And to me, this business is less about return on any investment. It's just about making sure that, we've got, again, he has access to financial freedom. He can design, new opportunities with his background. We can, in the future, when the business is more mature, add on ancillary businesses. I'm really not afraid of the risk of, as long as you have, again, you look at the financials and you say, okay, can this be a healthy business? How are we gonna, what are we gonna do if we hit a downturn? Or how do we make sure there's some guardrails in place? And if it pencils out on paper and you have the right team around you, you have access to capital if needed, seller financing in both of these scenarios was critical, right? Setting up the deal, making sure we had a little runway to get, our cash flow in order, pay for our business startup expenses, and then start paying back our sellers a year later. That's really, I think, for me, understanding how to set these deals up so you can finance it without, too much risk, has been the magic equation, I guess. And then just having the gumption and the will and the drive to know you can do it. And I would invest in these humans every single day. They work harder than I do in the business for sure. So for me, it's been so rewarding. I love every minute of it.
It's very cool to hear that, because I think as I'm listening to, you kind of talk about these businesses, it's very, I don't know if the word social entrepreneurship, but you're investing in friends and family. You're not investing in businesses at the end of the day, right? You are obviously, but I mean these businesses. I heard you talk about extended family, the family of 8 through First Strike, and then on the second one, Marines, right? It's your brother's business now that you're obviously involved in from a helping finance, and obviously you mentioned it, the art of structuring a deal is half the battle in some of these situations. So it's just really cool to hear that, Lisa, because I mean, a lot of people walk into these businesses and they're like, I want to buy a business. I want to have 5 businesses or 3 businesses or 2 businesses because I want all this cash flow and I want to, and obviously that's part of it. You've talked about financial freedom quite a bit, and we talk about that a lot on this platform. But it's cool to hear the story because not a lot of people say, hey, I went out and invested in friends and family, and now I own a couple businesses, in addition to being a fractional VP of marketing, in addition to owning a majority stake in a marketing firm, right? It's a pretty unique story. So we appreciate you kind of, walking us through that.
Yeah, thank you. I think I have time to reflect. I'm nursing a random injury right now. And I think about I used to be a pretty competitive cyclist, and for a variety of reasons, I haven't had my miles. I haven't been able to get my miles in the last few years. And I think about taking risks. I would take a lot of risks as a cyclist, right? And the adrenaline rush is high. And so I feel okay, well, I guess these are the risks I'm taking now. And this is the adrenaline rush and the competition. And I get that same sort of excitement when I'm in the deal. And I guess that might be a little nerve-wracking for me when I think about, okay, calm down, right? So let's not think you can buy every business, because we all know that, 1 in 10 businesses succeed after so many years. And so, I want to be careful to not be on the other end of that statistic. But I do believe that this is one of my, my superhuman powers is to help connect people, help see where there's opportunity. And if I really believe in it, then I'll drive to make it happen.
Yeah. And I mean, I can relate what you just said there. I mean, business is now your new sport.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
very cool.
It's funny. I never thought about it like that until recently.
Yeah, that is interesting. Well, it kind of brings me to my next, kind of wanted to hit on another topic here, and that's, in our previous discussions, you said you never really envisioned yourself being in this role. I mean, you've weaved this kind of message in throughout this entire episode, but I mean, what are some of the challenges and that people should be aware of as business owners, and maybe the other piece of the opportunity? I mean, you talked about this opportunity for financial freedom, right? You've talked a lot about that and having the flexibility, but maybe just dive into that if you don't mind for the audience, and just give them some context of what are the main challenges to watch out for, and then more importantly, what are the opportunities that you should be focused on as a business owner?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was really lucky with Giant Voices coming in. I shouldn't say lucky, because we worked so hard. I mean, Pasha and I, when I think about those early years, small salaries, distributions are going right back into the business. I'm paying the business back. Our business is still profitable, so you're figuring out how to pay taxes. Those were hard years. And we lived really lean. I mean, I have to give tremendous credit to my husband for believing and, for taking the risk alongside me. And, we were really lean for many, many years. And still in respects we are, right? So I think about how I grew up, right? I feel like we live so differently than how I grew up in so many ways. That we travel, we provide different opportunities for our children I never had access to, and I guess I'm jumping into the opportunities, right? That has been the ultimate joy and gift of business ownership for me has been today where I can travel with my family. I can travel. Now we can travel with our family of 8 and really look at travel from a different perspective. We can travel with my brother and have the family come after we've had a day of planning and head over to Brainerd and just again provide some different opportunity that maybe we didn't have access to before. But the challenges are real. And when you look at, I think when I look at my personality type, I don't really see challenges. I just plow right through them, right? So I see what's on the other side. It's part of my DNA. I just execute through problems, even if it is bootstrap, even if I know it's going to take me a year, I just will focus on the achievement at the end. And so business ownership definitely comes with its challenges. You've got people that you are relying on you to live their lives, right? 25 employees that come to work every day and that you're responsible for at Giant Voices. And that not only responsible for today, but you want them on a career path. So you have to be thinking about what does the future of your business look like and how do we structure for success? Do we want to keep growing? Do we want to hold? Do we want to, are we going to change our value proposition when this proposition has always worked? There's so many considerations. And Giant Voices today is a maturing business. We run it, it's not the entrepreneurial organization that it was when Pasha first invited me to join. We didn't really have the structures for, human resources and bookkeeping support and fractional finance support that we have today, even having really great advice from our attorneys today. Those aren't things we're bootstrapping it. We were just hungry for whatever type of business we could get our hands on that would help us prove our value to a client. And so today it's very different. Today we assess whether or not we're a good fit. Right now I'm currently assessing a client. It's a pretty big deal. I'm not sure that they're a good fit for us. And it's a lot. It could be a lot of money for our organization. And so you look at things different, right? There's a different set of decision criteria that you go through in a business like Giant Voices compared to even, say, First Strike or a Marines. And so I think that's the challenge. And for what I can see, the challenge is you have to be uncomfortable. Being okay being uncomfortable. I always say that I'm comfortable in the uncomfortable. And I say that out loud at least once a week. And I think it has been that mantra that has positioned me to just not carry everything home at the end of the day, to bog you down. You just have to be optimistic to work through those challenges. Or, there's so many challenges in a day, you could really easily bog yourself down and convince yourself that this is too hard.
No, that's definitely a skill set. I mean, I like what you said there earlier about making different decisions at different stages of the business. And so I've worked at startups before, and you make very different decisions in the first 2 or 3 years of a business than you do in year 8 or 9, right? Because typically, obviously, people you see these people on LinkedIn all the time or social media. You're like, this is what you should do, and I look at that and be like, yeah, this is what you should do if you're established and you've got a good foundation of business. But if you're in survival mode, and I've always said, when you're in startup mode or early stage entrepreneur mode, I was like 5 feet in front of the plane. You're putting 5 feet of tarmac in front of that plane every day. And, at the end of the day, the goal is to get the plane off the ground, off the tarmac, right? And so once you get the plane at 10,000 feet, yeah, you can make those decisions. But some of the other decisions that you have to make when you're on the tarmac are different.
Yeah, we say that all the time too. We say, I've not heard that tarmac analogy, but I like it because we talk about how we build the plane as we're flying it, right? So,
Yep.
and it's crazy. Even in one of the clients that I work with, where I am the VP of marketing on a fractional role, our data centers. I mean, what I love about their new CEO is that he is driving us in a lot of respects like an entrepreneurial company, as we've sort of changed some of our positioning. And I think about the opportunity to rebrand a $500 million business and how that has been, how quickly, we executed that. And, from my perspective, looking at these CEOs that I work with, or, when I'm wearing the hat in our businesses, I just admire how different people take different approaches to transitioning and their business model or their business in their respective industries. And I'm constantly intrigued by how people make their living and what services we provide in this world. It is what
some niche
drives
areas.
Yeah, it's definitely what drives me.
Well, I got to ask this question because I know the audience, after listening to this, is going to want me to ask it. So, Lisa, if the audience asks you for your top piece of business advice, what would that be?
Yeah, I mean, when I think about what made me who I am today, I think you have to surround yourself with people that believe in you. One thing that, I don't know that this has anything to do with it, but, I was adopted. My mom and dad weren't able to have children. So my brother and I are both adopted. We're not biological siblings. And my mom always believed in me, right? So even when I would get in trouble and I would say things like, I'm not perfect, I mean, she would respond to me and say, but you're close, right? And I'm super humble, so it's actually really even hard for me to admit that out loud. But my mom always, I remember when I told her told my mom and dad I was planning to join Pasha as an owner in Giant Voices, and my dad said, well, why would you do that? I mean, you've got a great job, you've got great benefits, this company loves you, why would you leave this company? And my mom was like, you can do whatever you put your mind to. I know you can do it. This is going to be great. And so I think you have to surround yourself with people that believe in you. And I think that's part of what our children, I worry about. I think a little bit with social media and with, just what our children, the environment that they grow up in today is so different. You're getting feedback so frequently. And a lot of times it's negative feedback, and a lot of times it's from people you don't know, but you have to surround yourself with people who believe in you. And mentorship, second, no question. I mean, when I think about, my first mentor I had when I was in college, he was my inspiration for becoming a business person and going into marketing. He actually I still keep in touch with him. It's, 30 years later, approximately, and maybe not 30, 25, I'm aging myself a little bit, but 25 years, right? Yeah. And then my current mentor, in a lot of respects, has become my business advisor, but, he was the original one who told me, Bodie, you're going to be a business owner someday, and here are all the things you can do. And so it's really important to me, not only to support you, but also keep you in check, right? I actually just called him the other day and I said, Westy, I need to sit down with you, and I need you to keep my ego in check. Tell me, am I crazy to turn this business down, or here's my perspective, and am I getting too big for my britches? I think you have to keep yourself growing, and in check along the way to, ensure that you don't alienate the people that have supported you, that have helped you become who you are, and just stay humble.
Well, that's great. Like this, that's amazing advice. And we've talked about this on this podcast actually in the past about mentorship. And, I think people sometimes forget that we have coaches and teachers and trainers, depending on what you're doing in your life, all through our lives as we grow up, right? And then all of a sudden we get through college and it's like, oh, now you're in the real world, and everybody shuts off the mentorship and shuts off the coaching. And, I think it's really important for people in the audience to hear that. I mean, you're a successful business owner. You have 3 businesses that you're a part of, and you have mentors, right? And I think that's the headline here for everybody in the audience, is that we should all have mentors no matter what stage in life we're at. Coaches, trainers, call them what you want, but they're important and integral for continued success and growth.
I agree. Totally agree. And as I transition, as I approach 50, which my friend keeps reminding me, we're approaching 50. I'm like, oh gosh, I do not feel 50. I think mentorship to me is going to look a little bit different, right? So at this point, I'm looking to some of my older friends and saying, okay, now it's time for me to add some peace in my life and some yin. How do I build some reflection time in my day where I'm not just always chasing the next idea? I don't know. I'm not there yet. I'm definitely not there yet. But I recognize it's actually essential, right? You have to have the time to reflect and grow and plan for, and if I want to achieve my, desired outcomes in life, it's important to be able to reflect and take that time, which I need to build more in.
Well, that's a perfect transition into this next question. And this one might be a little bit challenging given what you just said, but we ask everybody on this podcast, the platform's called Chasing Goalposts, but we always want to know, what is Lisa Bodine ultimately chasing?
Yeah, I know. I love it. I love the name of your podcast. Your guests, it's great. It's really, I really enjoy it. You're a good marketer. I will say that I'm at that stage right now, Dustin, where I'm working on that. I don't have it all figured out, right? I mean, I think about having a good life. Like, what does a good life mean to me, right? A good life. I have a good life. I have a great life. I have healthy kids. I have, a great home, community. I can't imagine wanting more than what I have in terms of what really matters, right? So I do know that my future 100% will involve whatever we call it, social entrepreneurship or family entrepreneurship. I don't know. I feel like we have to come up with a new name for it.
We got to term that after this episode, I think.
I agree. It's not angel investing because that's already coined, but I feel like it is a little bit of, something like that. I enjoy it. It's not about the return. Trust me, I've got my investments too that I expect the return, right? Those are necessary. They're part of the portfolio. But I do think I'll invest more in other businesses where I see opportunity for people I care about. As long as I keep being successful, right?
Yeah, well, and you will. I mean, you can see it, right, with yourself and your path. And they always say history speaks for itself a little bit too. So you've been there, you've done it. And so we appreciate that. I think it's also, we really appreciate the fact that you're like, hey, I don't have it all figured out yet. And I think the headline for all of us, if we're really honest with ourselves, none of us fully do, right? We think
Yeah.
we do, but 6 months passes by and all of a sudden we realize maybe we don't. So
Yeah.
we appreciate the response there for sure. But listen, we're going to wind things down here a bit, Lisa. This has been awesome. I mean, we've talked about your active roles in your ownership and, the Giant Voices, the marketing firm, your marketing leadership roles, investing alongside friends and family. And I know you said, the path always wasn't clear, but, to us, it seems that this was meant for you for sure. And we'll term that entrepreneurship term here coming out of here. And we'll follow up with that one. But for any audience members that want to get connected with Lisa Bodine, what's the best way to do that, Lisa?
Definitely through my LinkedIn, easy to find. Just search me up, as my kids would say. And then my email is lisa@giantvoices.com, and I'm always available. We hire a ton of young kids. I love to speak with college students and on a variety of different topics. So I'm always available to help people grow, their framework of thinking, and it's always fun for me to expand my network as well.
Awesome. Well, listen, in addition to the LinkedIn profile, so we'll link that so the audience knows. We'll link Lisa's profile to the show notes so you can get a hold of her through LinkedIn. We'll also get the links from you for those businesses, so obviously Giant Voices, and then the two businesses you had mentioned, First Strike and Marines. We'll get those linked to for anybody that is interested in those services. So before we roll down here, Lisa, let's, I'm going to give you the floor one more time. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience before we close up shop here?
I just commend the work that you're doing, Dustin. I mean, I think we met through one of these connections with Giant Voices, and thank you for asking me to join you. And I'm really excited to see how you continue to grow your reach, and however we can help you and keep connections going for you. I'm happy to make those connections, but thanks for doing this. You're doing great work too.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time and thanks for sharing your story. And number one and number two, all the advice. It was great. I think the audience is going to get a lot of value out of this episode, Lisa. So maybe we'll do it again here in a year or so.
Thanks. Okay, sounds good.
See ya.
See ya.